And welcome back to NCSY Pulse, the University of Minnesota Golden Gopher edition. I am John Ackerman, and I am joined today by Liza Gerbuz. Thank you so much, Liza. We know each other from the Judah Fellowship, but this is actually our first time meeting in person, so
it is.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Thank
to meet
you
you
for putting this whole event at the U of M together. Why don't you give us a little bit of your superhero origin story? How did you get involved in JSU and NCSY?
My first ever NCSY event was actually Shabbat Shebang in 5th grade at Mindy Deichman's house.
5th grade, that's early.
5th grade, junior NCSY. And ever since then, I've started going to all of her Shabbat events. And this was before I started keeping Shabbat. So I guess I owe it kind of to NCSY for getting me into that at first.
We'll take it.
Yeah, that was how it all started.
Wow. So how did you get connected to Shabbat Shebang?
I don't know how all Jews get connected in Minneapolis. I don't even remember. It was probably through someone saw a Facebook event and forwarded it, and all the moms obviously.
And that was it. The moms all got together. And
that's how I got involved.
And everybody knows Mindy, obviously.
Yes, and everyone knows
that's
Mindy.
sort of like she's the thing that ties everybody together. Okay, so you come in 5th grade, which is a pretty far away from being involved in JSU in high school.
Yeah.
So walk us through, what was it like starting in the ground level and then ensuring your way through NCSY and JSU?
It was really cool because when you join in 5th grade and then you go to these junior events in middle school, you see all the advisors and you're like, oh my God, they're so old. They're in high
so
school.
Old.
They're in college. When you're when you're young, they seem like a big adults to you. And then working your way up and going to JSU in high school, you're like, wait, now I'm one of those leaders. Now I am once you graduate, now I'm old enough to be an advisor. So it's just I don't know. It's funny, kind of.
Did you have any leadership positions when you were involved in JSU?
Yes, I was co-vice president of my high school JSU, and then I was also co-president.
All right, same person?
No, different people.
Ah, okay.
Different
But you made your way through. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were a vice president. You were a president. Was there an experience that you look back on that you say that was sort of the pinnacle of my JSU or NCSY experience?
Definitely the Shabbatones, the local Shabbatones that we had. I always looked forward to those.
Not even the travel ones, the ones that were here in Minneapolis.
The ones that were local, because it's the community is so small in Minneapolis that you go to different hosts and they already know everything about you.
Right.
It makes it more fun when it's a small
it's funny
community.
Because now I live in New York, but I grew up in Minneapolis here, and whenever people find out that I'm from Minneapolis, they're like, oh, do you know?
Yeah.
And immediately, even before they say the name, it's like, yes, I know them. We grew up around the corner from them. We went to school together.
Yes.
We all kind of know each other.
You know their family history.
You mentioned that you keep Shabbat, and I know that you have a distinguished kosher cooking background and everything. And I would encourage everybody to check out Liza's kosher cooking videos that we have up on Instagram. But now you're at the University of Minnesota. You're an adult, whether you like it or not. You've entered that phase. Looking back on your experience as a high school student and getting to know Mindy and, like you said, the advisors, was there something about the NCSY experience that you can kind of look at and say, because of that, I'm able to have an involved Jewish life on campus?
Yeah, because obviously there are a lot of people that go to my college that I knew from high school. And some of those relationships I wouldn't have made if it weren't for JSU. In terms of my Jewish friends, we would see each other every single week at JSU, and then we're like, oh, I'm going to miss you so much in college. Right. Oh, wait, we're going to college together.
Right.
Why don't we just keep on hanging out, going to Chabad together, doing this and that? And so that definitely, if you're lucky and a lot of your friends are going to the same school as you, then JSU definitely would have strengthened that relationship in the first place.
Do most people from JSU and from NCSY Minneapolis, do they end up at the U of M here?
A lot of people do.
I mean, God forbid, we don't want to see them going to Wisconsin. I've heard rumors before.
Most go to either the U or Madison.
Are you allowed to talk to people who go to Madison?
It's frowned upon.
It is frowned. I hear that. I still, it's funny because I tell people I'm from Minnesota, and I get these weird questions like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And I'll say, are they from Minneapolis? I don't know them. I'm like, no, they're from Milwaukee, or they're from St. Louis. We just figured you all know each other and hang out on Saturday nights.
Of course.
Mindy, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Mindy Deichman behind the camera right now, but I get this sometimes. It's like, no. But then when they say, do you know someone from Wisconsin? It's like, no. And I never will. I don't want to know anyone from Wisconsin. We don't like to.
Don't
people.
ask me that ever again.
Next question. I don't want to hear it. Green Bay, especially, obviously. it was like I was telling you on our way here, I knew I was, when I was at the airport flying to Minnesota last night, I had the most Minnesota experience ever, which was that, some people just started talking to me in the airport and they're like, oh, do you know the Vikes score? And it's like, oh, I guess they know. I have the aura that I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then I spilled on the woman next to me. I think I mentioned to you. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm waterproof. And it's I'm like, wow, I'm really surrounded by Minnesotans. But what really kind of drove it home for me. So they announced at the end of the flight, we're a little delayed. So everybody who has connections, like, let's let the people with connections, deplane first. And like 15 people got up and started walking. And everyone else followed instructions. And all the Minnesotans just sat there politely waiting for everybody to get off the plane. I'm like, wow, this is really like a flight of Minnesotans. These are not New Yorkers. But okay, so you're here at the U of M now, which we know far superior to University of Wisconsin in every way. Yeah. And you have a solid Jewish background. You went through the JSU NCSY system. You went on Shabbatons. But, the past year and a half, Jewish life on campus has not been the easiest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. What's it been like here at the U of M? Have you seen anti-Semitism? Have you encountered it? What's the environment been like for you?
Well, I will say the very first time I ever saw like a pro-Palestine table, it was really, really shocking. But that was the first time. And then it's like every time you see it afterwards, I mean, the unfortunate reality is you just get used to it. You just keep walking. Because, what are you going to do? Go up and argue with them? This is the best way to fight back, is to show, well, I'm stronger than you. I'm not going to stoop down to your level. And that's just kind of what you train yourself to do, especially because it happens often. You see it almost every day. And so it's rough. I don't see explicit anti-Semitism, but it can be very implicit, and it is through the pro-Palestine tables, I think.
Right.
So that's what I've seen so far.
And have you ever felt like it's not safe, or they do a pretty good job of keeping everything?
Well, you might have read on the news a few months ago, there was a little bit of they destroyed one of the buildings, and that was the biggest
Right. I remember that we were texting when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
It was scary knowing that, okay, they're actually resorting to violence now, and there are people inside the building whose lives are at stake because what if they can't get out? And and that was that was the biggest thing so far. So
it's interesting. As we've been touring around and doing a lot of these interviews, you meet a lot of people. And I was at Cornell University in the spring, and they actually were receiving death threats there, which was really crazy. The students there, similar at University of Maryland, and it's tough because. You know that the schools, sometimes they do what they can. Sometimes they try to sweep it under the rug. At Cornell, one of the student leaders told me they had graffiti all over one of the sidewalks. And they went so far as to dig up the sidewalk and repave the whole area. So my first reaction was, oh, at least they're on top of it. They want to get rid of it. Yeah. And he said, no, they don't want people to know about it. Oh. Which is not what you want to hear, and it's tough.
Very counterproductive.
It's challenging, and there's not a lot of easy answers, obviously. Yeah. But if you could go back now, knowing what you've gone through some of these events on campus, and you're more of a seasoned leader at this point because of your time as a leader in JSU and your involvement in NCSY, and your extracurriculars, all through the course of your high school and college career up to this point. If you could go back and find Liza, the fifth grader, who's just starting out. I mean, you had a long career in NCSY, fifth grade to eighth grade, and then all of high school. That's longer than most people get to spend in NCSY. What would you tell yourself? What piece of advice that now what would you go back in time and tell yourself at the very beginning?
Oh my gosh. I would tell her that, it is so worth it in the end. Every single event that I went to, every single person that I met, because this obviously was not really my life back then. Like I said, my family, I didn't grow up religious, And so in fifth grade, I was not yet religious either. And so little Liza would probably be like, what do you mean you keep Shabbat? What do you mean? What is that even? Why? What meaning does that have to you? She needs, I would tell her that it's literally everything. It's the best thing ever. So. Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah. And if you could send a message to Mindy, who kind of got you involved in the very beginning, who I know you're still close with, even though you made her schlep all across campus to get here in the freezing cold. but she deserves a little bit of a shout out for that. But if you could say something to Mindy, what would it be?
I would say thank you very much for pushing me, for like every single event you've put together for us, for every single time you've let me stay at your house for Shabbos, for like just everything that you've done for me and my family. Because actually, we have like family ties.
Really?
Yes, my brother also, he started out through like St. Louis Park, through the community that we have, staying by Mindy's. So if it weren't for all of that, I don't know how involved it would have been either. So thank you for everything.
Wow, that is really wonderful. And I can say I have a little bit of a, I don't want to say if it's a similar experience, but I spent a lot of time before it was the Deichmann house, it was the Smith house. Different house, same family. But I spent a lot of time in their house growing up, and I can attest to the incredible impact they can have on people.
Yes.
Mindy's father was my teacher in second grade and
Really?
fifth grade, and maybe more. I'm trying to remember, but definitely second grade and fifth grade. And then he was my best friend's dad. So lots of experiences there, lots of fishing trips, and baseball games and everything else. And he was my boss. I actually worked for Mindy's
Oh.
dad. He ran a camp, and I was a counselor.
Triple threat.
Yeah, so lots of connections to the Smith Deichmann family. So, okay, Liza, this is great.
Thank
you did
you so
great.
much.
Thank you for
Thank
putting
you.
this together. You are our Judah Fellow
Anytime.
at the University of Minnesota. The Judah Fellowship is our campus alumni program. So we thank you for your service and for putting this together. And this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.